and regulations and all that kind of thing. So that would also, I would hope, be a further motivation for both sides to do what they should, because litigation is always a possibility in that case.
Thank you. Mark.
I rise in opposition to the amendment and to raise objection to proposed rule 1059-4. However, I will say that I'm not against this proposal. I rise because I think that these amendments and rule 1059-4 tie the hands of the SDEC in putting this in the rules by itself. Would tie their hands going forward, and we'd have to come back and have rules debates if we wanted to change the compensation for the state party chair. And I think that is a matter that should be delegated to the SDEC as the leadership of the organization of the Texas Democratic Party. And my recommendation would be to accept Rule 1060-4 as passed in Williamson County.
Thank you so much for your comment.
Mr. Chair, could I just provide a clarification to that on behalf of the author?
Yes.
Thank you. To anyone here that's in a large urban county or urban city, compensation to city council members is prescribed in your local charters, which is voted on by the members. Also, this gives the opportunity for the delegates, all of the delegates at the convention, to weigh in on this, and not just a small body of SDEC members, which actually I'm a part of. I'm on the SDEC. Leaving it in the hands of the delegation allows a full body to weigh in on this, and not just a small group of individuals. Thank you.
My objection is not to who controls it. It's more to the flexibility and the ability of the organization to move more quickly if conditions change.
Thank you for your comment.
Philip. Live stream should be fixed, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. Philip.
Philip Reese, CD 27. I do have a concern on the be further resolved in the event of the shortage of funds when the entire payroll cannot be met by the party accounts. I'm a little bit concerned that the chair might be left hanging out there months, maybe half a year or a year before it gets paid. I'm concerned about the way we're stating it right there, and that be it further resolved in the event of shortage of funds. We don't seem to be addressed that properly to protect the chair or the party. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else would like to comment? Marco.
Oh, Mr. Chair, I know I said this at the beginning, but I do have an amended version that's an entire strike and replace, but it uses a lot of the language. So when it's appropriate, I would like to offer that amendment.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor or against the current amendment? Fidel.
Voting on the amendment?
Yes.
Against it.
In favor or against?
Against it.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Secretary, will you let us know where we are on the current amendment?
We have opportunity for one more in support.
Anyone else? Carolyn.
Mr. Chairman.
One moment. I see a hand that was raised before.
No problem.
Carolyn, would you still like to be recognized?
I do not have a statement to make. I just was supporting in favor of the amendment.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Secretary, have we exhausted the?
Yes, sir, we have.
Okay. I'd like to move this amendment towards a vote.
Mr. Chair, the spreadsheet is uploaded with 1059 as amended, and then we'll have to go back to the original 1059 as amended or any additional amendments after.
All right, thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, I have a parliamentary inquiry.
Is that Alex?
Yes, I've been saying that a lot tonight. Is this on Rule 1059 as amended, or is it on the amendment to Rule 1059?
Madam Parliamentarian?
Well, it's my motion.
So the language that's presented included the "and all benefits offered," that insertion. That's the version that was presented to the body just now. So the amendment is to strike "or in the event that a new chair is elected before the convention due to vacancy." That is the current motion on the floor.
I just want to make sure the vote is titled in a manner that reflects its
Yes.
purpose.
It would not be proper to have both of those in the same amendment anyway, because they are not contiguous.
And just want to make sure that we are up to speed. Marco, is your amendment separate from this?
My amendment actually included this strike. So it is, yeah, it is separate, but it already included that strike.
All right, seeing as there's no more discussion.
Point of information, sorry. Mr. Jeremy Sitka, CD3. I'm still confused because the vote tab says 1059 amended. So are we voting on 1059 as amended or on the amendment to 1059?
Madam Parliamentarian? Thank you.
Thank you, that helps.
Shoot, we might have both been trying to fix it.
Many hands make light work. All right, seeing as there is no further discussion, we will proceed with the vote. All those in favor of this amendment, please vote yes. All those against the amendment, please vote no.
See, there's 28 members that have already voted because we've been voting for the last 2 minutes. Are there any members that need me to help them vote? Like Fidel?
Yeah. Vote no for it.
Okay. Casey, do you need help still?
Yes, I guess because I'm on my iPad. When everybody else starts voting, I can't get to mine. So yes, please vote yes.
Any other members?
Carolyn, are you able to vote?
Carolyn Salter, I know you spoke in favor. Did you want to vote yes or no?
I'm sorry, I'm having audio problems. Yes.
All right, I got you down.
Ms. Chair, are you ready for the vote?
Yes, sir.
With 28 in favor, 4 in opposition, the amendment to 1059 passes.
All right, thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, can I present my amendment?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I have way too many tabs open. Found it. Okay, so because we're currently amending 1059 and I started off with utilizing 1060-4 and it incorporates some of the 1059, this is essentially an entire strike and replace for process wise. So it's to strike all of the language in the therefore be resolved 1059 with this language, and I can increase it just maybe that's a little too much.
I think that's good. We can see that one.
Okay, so essentially what it's doing, the stuff that's different is it's keeping what was in 1060 as is, but what was in 1059, the salary and the benefits stuff, is it's moving it to two different resolve clauses to sort of separate it to make it a little bit more clear. And so that's why these read this way, and I'm happy to read these. Be it further resolved, a starting budget line item shall be created for the position of state chair if full-time, beginning in July of 2026 with an annual salary of $150K or another negotiated amount, and that a full-time state chair shall have the option of receiving all benefits offered by the Texas Democratic Party to all full-time employees. And it already does what we just voted to do, which is strike that section of the or if earlier. So it already incorporates that. That is my amendment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary.
I think I need to wait to see if there is a second to have discussion against it.
Second.
Okay. There were quite a few. I don't know who came off of mute first.
May I be recognized?
Absolutely. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Mr. Chair. It just kind of at first glance of reading this for the first time, it appears as if the biggest differentiator is in this second to last, be it further resolved clause that says $150,000 or another negotiated amount. Listen, folks, we don't have time to play games or play any type of non-understanding where exactly we want to be with our party. Our Republican counterparts at the Texas Republican Party pays $150,000. On the Democratic side in California as well as Florida, they pay $150,000. This is not an opportunity for us to send anything but clear and concise and direct language in this rule here, and to the incoming next chair exactly where we want to be with our party. And if nothing else is different from face value from what I see here to what we just by 28-4 votes passed, then this language here does nothing but water down exactly what we want to do and signal to our constituencies as a whole what we want to accomplish here right now. So I would wholeheartedly ask you to vote against this. Marco does a great job. This is nothing against him personally, but this is not the time to water down a great opportunity to send a direct signal to our state and our delegation what we want in our party.
Thank you for your comment. Mark.
Oh, I didn't know we were already moving to for and against discussion, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make the amendment.
And it was seconded, so we are in discussion.
Correct. Was there something additional that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that there was going to be, like we've done with all the other amendments, where there was questions and points of information first before. Yeah, I didn't know we were going to go straight into the 3-4-3 against.
Sure, my apologies. Is there any hand raised? I'm just calling the names in order that I saw them. Is there any let's do this. Please lower your hand at this point if it is not a point of information. Let's try that. I'll give you a second to lower your hand if it is not a point of information. Okay. Mr. Secretary, we will document your comment as given, and then we will recognize these points of information. Right. Omar Jimenez.
Mr. Chair, on the part where it gives the amount of the salary or other negotiated amount, is there a intent that the party chair can negotiate a higher amount than the $150 to whoever it is that's going to be in charge of making those negotiations?
Do you mind if I address that, Mr. Chair?
Please.
So,
It wasn't Jasmine, she's down here.
all right, make sure you all are on mute, members. Okay,
It was not
so
Jasmine, she's down here.
sorry, give me a second. Okay, so
Thank you.
the language that's different is a starting budget line item. You don't ever want to put, for best practices, like a hard number in the bylaw, because then essentially what you're doing is giving very little flexibility for that governing body to maneuver. So it's starting budget line item of 150K. What this would essentially do is already start the 2026-2027 annual budget with a line item of 150K. And the reason why I think wanted to leave in or another negotiated amount, wanted to have that, a thorough discussion maybe with the SDC or potentially negotiation with a chair, an incoming chair, the new chair, if they wanted to structure the salary in some sort of different way, like based on fundraising compensation or so on and so forth. So all of this is supposed to be a rule, but then you would still need to do a budget, which is, simple majority, procedural, and then also anything that is standing rules, like that's all the administrative, clerical stuff.
Thanks so much for the clarification. Mr. Secretary, I'm not sure if your hand is up for a point of information or if it's still remaining up. Thank you. All right. Nancy Sanders.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, hi there, y'all. I just wanted to bring up a point of information about, and I don't want to be watering down things either. I think the simpler they are, the cleaner. However, the hesitancy about putting something in for a budget line item and getting into the weeds on it. Previously, there was another rule submitted asking for minimum call time to be done by the chair, which is a fundraising aspect, which is another way of helping to fund this salary. And I don't know if that could be something Marco can tell us, if that's something that could be added to this as some kind of way to ameliorate any kind of hesitancy on the part of us who are voting on this. Because if you have minimum call time per week for the chair, which should be something that's just part of the job criteria, he's the leader, he's the message person, he's the person that's supposed to attract voters in and donors. And so if you add that in as sort of a something to bolster this position, maybe it would be easier to swallow. And we do need it. I agree. I mean, we don't need to debate the merits of this. We know we have to be competitive. The other thing we could do, as far as if you've got a specific number that could be hard to, I don't know, fight up or down later or advance it or decrease it, whatever. I mean, maybe you tie it to, say, I don't know if this is risky or not, but you could tie it to, say, something less specific, like the governor's salary. I think Abbott gets 153. So you could tie it to something like that. So we know, you know, things are going to increase or decrease. I mean, I hate to tie it to anything that's, you know, currently filled by a Republican, but something like that. I'm just offering that as an idea.
Thank you. Mitzi.
Thank you. Point of clarification. I would like to ask, when Marco was giving us an explanation of this new text or the new format, whether the words are exactly the same and it was only changed at the bottom from one paragraph to two, be it further resolved, because I'm just wanting to go back to the other version to see if it said the word if full-time. I may be mistaken, but I thought the previous version said full-time. Thank you.
Sorry, if full-time in what resolve clause?
Marco, the one where it reads, be it further resolved, a starting budget line shall be created for the position of state chair, comma, if full-time. So I'm just asking, was that particular phrase, if full-time, in the earlier version we passed?
Not exactly. So basically a lot of the information that's in the now fourth and fifth resolve clause in 1059 was inside of the first resolve clause. So because it was in the first resolve clause, full-time was connected to that, I believe. And then and so since it's separated, that's why there's a if full-time there.
Okay, I'll go back and look at the other one. To me, this just looks like a watered down version of a full-time position. So that's what I'm looking at.
All right. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Dylan.
I guess I had a question about Mr. Bryant's concern, and I don't know if there's a way you can answer my question about what his concern was, but I'll just say it this way. If the concern is or another negotiated amount language could mean something less than $150,000, then language that I think could address that concern would be something like an annual salary of no less than $150,000 or another negotiated amount. So it's basically creating a floor if the concern is that, you know, we're basically we're not setting in stone a minimum amount. So anyway, that's my question was that the concern that Mr. Bryant has and maybe some other folks as well? And if so, I personally think it would be appropriate to have an annual salary of no less than $150,000 or another negotiated amount to address that concern.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Member Russell, for the question. I'm not exactly sure where the intent is to allow negotiations to go up or down, which actually speaks to my greater concern, which is it doesn't give clear indication what exactly we want to do here and what we just amended does, and what the original author that proposed the rule change does give clear and concise direction of what the exact dollar amount is. And to remind those here, if you live in a major urban city that does compensate your mayor and your council, it is within the charter that prescribes what that exact dollar amount is and is voted on by the members of that city. That is no different from what we're doing here. So to say that it does not, those numbers don't exist in bylaws where they exist in charters in major urban cities, that's not exactly true.
Thank you for that clarification. Member Schamberger.
Hi, Kristen Schamberger, Senate District 32. I share a very similar concern to Randall. So I'm speaking against this particular amendment, but I believe that the proposal in general should be recommended. I think allowing a party chair to negotiate another salary other than what the delegates specifically vote on causes there's risk for a lot of conflict with that. What happens if a party chair wants a higher salary and the SDEC says no? Is the party chair going to hold the SDEC hostage until they give them the amount that they're requesting? I think Randall's right that we need to be very clear about what we're expecting from our chair. And that begins with what we're willing to offer them as an annual salary. Any increase beyond that should be voted on by delegates at the state convention.
Okay, Member Schamberger, I want to make sure, I believe I heard that as a statement of support. Was there a point of information there?
Are we not in the for and against?
No, not yet.
My bad. Then you can
No problem. We will document your comment. So I believe we have one so far documented as for and one so far documented as against. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. These are points of information.
I believe Member Schamberger's was against this amendment.
Mark down as against.
Okay. Right. Just want to clarify, these are points of information only. We have not gotten to our debate just yet. Right. Member Mead.
Mr. Chairman, I note the time is 8:49 and I move that the committee do now recess for 5 minutes. I move that we go into recess for 5 minutes.
Second.
All right. We have a second. Right. I see a few hearts here as well. So we can go into recess for 5 minutes. Thank you, Member Mead.
Mr. Chair, I'm not exactly sure how to handle this procedurally. We do have our operations director here that at some point, maybe could provide some more appropriate context from, the HR staff perspective that would be appropriate to answer questions and stuff.
Okay. See with hands.
Mr. Chairman, have we disposed of the motion for a recess?
The chair said that there would be a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
Correct. All right, Mr. Secretary, are you there? Can you hear me? right, just as a quick time check, we have about 1 minute left.
All to be here.
All right. I think we are missing just a few folks, but I'd like to gather back in from our recess and resume our meeting. We are right at our 5-minute mark. Just want to check and make sure as we resume this meeting, all of our officers are here. Let me scroll and make sure I see everyone. Okay. If you just come off mute and let me know that you're here so that we can resume the meeting.
I'm here, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. Madam Parliamentarian, are you here? Madam Parliamentarian, are you here? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, sorry.
And then Madam Vice Chair and Marco, if y'all can hear me, please come off mute. Perfect. I see you, Marco. Okay, we have the majority of our officers. We can resume the meeting. Before we took a recess, we were entertaining points of information around the amendment that's on the floor. If there are any more points of information or any questions regarding that amendment, would you please, let's do this. Miriam, I'm not sure if your hand is up for a point of information or if it was up prior to. If there are any points of information regarding the amendment, I'd like to address those before we move into debate.
Yes, it's a point of information on an amendment I have. Do I offer it now or do I wait until we do before against?
Is there a point of information on the current amendment?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
My point of information is I have a couple of things I would like to add as an amendment to this amendment. And should I bring them up now or should I wait until after we hear for or against?
After.
Okay.
Member Anza.
So I'm not exactly sure if it should be placed here, but as I guess me asking this question, is there going to be quarterly reviews for the state chair? I know that when I was reading about the Republican side that as a point of contention that they did add quarterly reviews for their state chair after funding the 150,000. Is that anywhere going to be a part of this? And what we're doing?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
if I may explain, that would be a procedural document that would be ancillary to this, that those are things like reviews and the details of how those are observed. Those go in a procedural document that's adopted by the SDC. They are not appropriate for our main governing document body.
Okay.
All right, let me unmute here. All right, so I'm not seeing any other further questions. A point of information, Nancy Sanders, I believe, see your hand. Please come off mute. Nancy, if you're saying something.
Sorry. If I wanted to ask the same thing about the fund, if we added fundraising, call time, minimum standards, I just wanted to find out, is that something that could be in an amendment?
Madam Parliamentarian.
Call time would be, that sounds like it's under the details of increased expectations, responsibilities, and accountability that are listed. So that would be more appropriate in a procedural document.
Okay, thank you.
Member Jenkins.
Yes, so I just want to clarify for my own understanding is that what is here is kind of our basis that we are saying that we want and expect from the chair as being a paid position, but the finer minute details will be in that employment agreement or contract or whatever that technical legal portion of it's going to be, that'll be decided later in supplemental documentation, but not be put in the rules. Like I just want to understand, like most contracts, you don't put the terms inside your rules because then you can't negotiate and fix those terms when needed, correct?
Do we have a response?
Yeah, I do believe that's the idea, is like a lot of the details would need to be done via the budget process or via procedural rules or in some sort of ancillary document. Yes, correct.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary.
Are we at the point to speak in support or against the motion?
I believe so. I don't see even any other hands for point of information, so we can move forward to a debate. Again, just FYI, I don't think we've covered this in a while. We've spent a few minutes on points of information. So if we're limiting rules of debate to 2 minutes, and there'll be three for or 3 against, and then we'll alternate as they come up, right? And so we will entertain those now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And before I start, just for matter of record, this will be the second individual against the motion. We have not had any in support of the motion for you to understand.
This would be the third. You spoke against and Kristen spoke against.
I responded to a question that was asked by Dylan Russell, and Christian Schamberger was the first person to speak against.
So we'll just want to clarify, you did not speak against.
I responded to a question that was asked by Dylan Russell, who asked a question of me.
Prior to that, you were the first person to speak when this was put forward, before Marco asked and clarifying if this was questions, and the chair stated that would be counted against.
Mr. Chair, and also since this is debate on an amendment, I believe we're not, it's not 3-4-3 against, it's 2 and 2.
So I'm sorry. That's correct. Okay. Just for clarification, it is 2 and 2. All right, Mark.
If I'm in favor.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, I'm speaking in favor. First of all, addressing the issue of where exactly city council pay amounts are going, local government code 141 sets that as actually by the governing body, although it can be affected by the charter. There's actually case law related to that, but it's generally set by the governing body, which is what I think is the best practice here. And this amendment, Marco, I'll agree with Secretary Bryant that Marco did a wonderful job in distilling what we're trying to do here. I think this is the cleanest way to assert this change in rules and how to set salary. And I am fully in support of this amendment and fully in support of the Rule 1060-4. This fixes every problem that I have with Rule 1059-4.
Thank you. Member Zapata.
Hi, so I am speaking against the amendment. Are we at like the 2-2 max?
I believe we are. Mr. Secretary, can you confirm?
Yes. We
Yes,
have
ma'am.
one more in support.
Okay, all right, then I guess I will drop.
Thank you. Is there anyone speaking to support this item? If you are, let me make sure these. Okay. Jeremy.
Yeah, there are some concerns over the limit of the 150 or negotiated. I think with a position that is so fundraising and the fundraising portion of it is so important, we do want to provide flexibility in how the salary may be worked out. It may be that someone wants to take 100,000 but have incentives in their fundraising that may bring it to 50,000 or more additional. So, having the flexibility to negotiate that part to go and build in incentives that can go and raise the money we need to elect Democrats, I think is critical to what we need to do.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I don't want to speak for or against, but I did mention that our operations director is here, and it might be helpful to, if members have questions or, it might be helpful for staff that deals with these types of issues to respond or have some comment period.
Thank you. I want to make sure that we are setting aside time for, before we do that, Marco, I want to make sure that we are setting aside time for member questions. So we want to get to every hand. Fidel, do you have is this is this a statement for or against?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I'm for the amendment, but there is a concern here of, from my part, on a contract, and this might be a procedural thing, that the contract be based on a 2-year term versus a 4-year that we elect the officers. We have elected at 4 years, and the contract should allow a 2-year term contract on the procedural part. That would mean changing the election code 171.002 to go to a 2-year term versus a 4-year term. But this would be all based on a contract on a 2-year term that would allow us to vote for a chairman every 2 years versus a 4-year term.
Thank you for your comment. That is two. We're voting on an amendment that is 2 against that we've heard, and we have 2 for at this point, Mr. Secretary.
I believe I have 2 in support and 2 against.
Okay. All right. The remaining 2 hands are these points of information. See, Miriam.
Mr. Chair, no, it's my amendment. I'd like to offer an amendment.
Will you please hold that? Kristen.
I have point of discussion for this amendment, if that's all right.
Sure.
So I think it's important that we recognize that everyone is entitled to fair pay for their work. And in most jobs, everyone is also allowed to negotiate their salary. And I understand the concern for the if clause, that what we want to do is attract someone to the role who may otherwise not be able to do the role if we do not offer a base salary. So it's important that we are attracting more competition to a role that will have, if you have less competition, then you know, you'll end up with workers with more experience running for these jobs if they're paid, and if they're able to negotiate for their pay based on their experience. So that's my point of discussion for this amendment.
Thank you for your comment. Any other points of information or discussion? Okay. I'd like to take a point of personal privilege on this one. Just speaking from experience before we take this vote, as party chair and as a party chair of a large county, I think as we talk about the operations of our state, I think it's critically important that we look at clarity in this document, clarity about what we're offering individuals who we are electing to lead our state party, right? And then also just from experience, I've gone through this process in our county and Dallas County as well. So I know what it means to go take this before the body, but also have to have the proper amount of clarity to take this to them as well. So this measure was successful in Dallas County, and I think that it's a positive for our state. And so I just want to add that point of information, personal privilege, that when you're dealing with proposals like this, I think you have to have as much clarity as possible in them. But also, I think for the individuals who are on the receiving end of this, there are people who are professionals, right, who may be coming from another sector. So I think someone talked about an attorney who may be in private practice. For individuals to take the reins and to lead our state party, I think we should be fair to them and let them know exactly what they're going to get, right? It shouldn't be muddy water, shouldn't be unclear. If someone is taking on a full-time job in any other career field, they should know exactly what they are walking into and what the expectations are, so that if they choose to be full-time, that is available to them. So I just wanted to offer that up before we take the vote. Seeing as there is no more discussion, we will proceed with taking the vote on this item, on this amendment. I did hear that there may be another amendment, but I want to take the vote on this amendment as
Mr.
it.
Chair, if this is an amendment to the amendments, that should be heard before this amendment's disposed of.
Which one is that?
So I think, sorry.
Is that Kristen?
I think it was Marion who had amendment to the amendment, possibly.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Chair, I do have an amendment.
Go ahead.
In the second, be it further resolved, my proposed amendment is to strike in the event of a shortage of funds, basically everything before it gets to the word passing. It's like all the way to, strike that, and strike the in the event of the shortage of funds as well. Up to the word passing. Passing that, basically where it says, be it further resolved that passing this, and this is a rule change, so it's not a resolution. So I amended that, strike the word resolution and add the word rule. This is a rule.
All things were submitted via resolution, so that's clerical. Don't worry about that.
Understood.
Point of order, Madam Parliamentarian, this is not amendment to the amendment.
The amendment's a full strike and replace, so it is within the scope of the amendment. Even though it didn't change anything in the full strike, like in this section, it was presented as a full strike and replace.
That is correct.
Okay.
That by passing this resolution/rule and leaving that as is. And for the second one, where it says a starting budget line item shall be created with an annual salary, and I said not to exceed, but 150,000 or the current salary of the Texas governor as negotiated during the budgeting process.
Mr. Chair, that would be a different amendment.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we'll take a step back and vote on the current amendment on the floor. Miriam, we'll get to yours in just a
Mr.
second.
Chairman, point of order.
Yes.
This is an amendment to the amendment. We should discuss the amendment to the amendment, which is the proposal by Marion Spencer Morrison to strike this text. We should vote on the proposal to strike that text. We should consider any other amendments to this text. We should then vote on Mr. Orrantia's amendment, which would replace Resolution 1059 with this text. Then we should vote on Resolution 1059 as amended.
Thank you, Member Mead. Is there any discussion?
Point of order. What are we actually discussing here? Was this a full strike amendment to 1059?
That is
Or was
correct.
this an amendment to 1060? Because it can be read either way.
Mr. Chair, do you mind if I clarify?
Please.
So forget that this one in front of you is numbered 1060-4. That doesn't matter anymore. I presented to 1059 whatever, that the text in front of you, sans the amendment to the amendment that Miriam just made, is a strike and replace of that 1059. So that was my amendment. But now Miriam has an amendment to my amendment to just strike this one portion. So that's what we're discussing currently. Does that clear up?
Yeah, that clarifies. Yeah, that clarifies where we were. Thank you.
I mean, I have a strike to amendments to two portions.
That's going to be a different amendment. We're going to have to deal with this one first.
Okay, that's fine.
Any further discussion?
I'm not sure if there's been a second or has someone seconded the amendment to the amendment.
I believe there is no second. Okay. There is no second on this item. We will.
So the word is your motion fails for lack of a second.
Thank you, Madam Parliamentarian. Motion fails for lack of a second. All right. So we'll move back to, I believe, the vote on the original amendment. And we have exhausted our limits of debate on that amendment. So we will move into proceed with the vote for the original amendment. We'll pull up that vote sheet. And just a reminder that a vote yes is in favor to recommend, and a vote no is a vote against to not recommend.
And if there's any new members that need the chat, or sorry, the link, I just put the
Can you please clarify the columns that we're voting in right now?
we are voting in column K and L. If it's helpful for members, sorry.
Sorry, just a point of clarification. We are voting on the amendment, correct? Not on passing this yet, just on amending.
Yes, so striking 1059, the language that we originally had, with the language that we were just looking at. And what I'll do to maybe make things a little bit easier is I'll hide any prior votes at this time. So right now we should be voting in column K and L. Does anyone need help voting?
Tim, I just have a point of clarification. I'm sorry, my audio cut out. What is this vote that's happening? I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, do you mind if I clarify?
Please, go ahead.
So one moment. The so we are on amendment 1059-4. And so this is the main motion is this resolve clause. The amendment that I had put forward is to strike all of that language and replace it with this language. That's the vote we're on right now.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were back on the main motion. I didn't know if we were still on something else, but thank you.
Mr. Chair, you have a question from Member Russell?
Member Russell, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. I somehow deleted my option to check the yes column. I don't know if there's a way to put that back in. When I was trying to uncheck, I accidentally cleared the box completely.
Impressive.
Yeah. I'm no fan of Google anything.
Is
So
it
there you go.
possible
Thanks.
for you to copy and paste one of the other boxes?
Yeah, somebody put it back in, so I'm
Yeah,
good now. Thank you.
I just fixed it.
Thank
Are
you.
there any members that need help voting?
Yes, this is Carolyn. I'm just going to put it in the chat. I can't figure out how to do it on my phone.
If you could just verbally say it, because I might miss it in the chat.
No.
No, and you're what CD are you with?
6.
Okay.
Yeah, take
Fidel?
take care of mine. Yes, on it.
Yes. Are there any other members that need help voting?
Yes, this is Edwin. I found it.
Ann Rosenwinkel, CD7.
Yeah,
What's your vote?
I found it.
Ann, I can't hear you clearly. Are you yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you.
Member Russell, you have a question? If you're saying something, you are muted.
No, sorry, I'm going to lower my hand. Sorry about that.
No problem. Anyone else? Any outstanding votes? Anyone need assistance? All right, Mrs. Secretary.
With 19 in favor, 14 opposed, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Amendment passes.
Next proposal, please. Mr. Secretary.
We're still on we're back on the main motion as amended.
Ah, okay.
And I think you had someone that wanted to provide a amendment to it.
Okay. Was that Miriam? Sorry. Someone wanted to provide a amendment to the main motion as amended. I'll make sure I recognize the right individual.
Yes. I just was saying to put this 150,000 or the salary of the the governor to kind of tie it to a elected official, as what happens with most council members and or mayors of large cities. It ties it to some salary of something so that it's not, it kind of ties it to some official that's similar in stature,
Mr.
the
Chairman,
position.
Thanks for your comment. Member Mead.
I raise a point of order that the motion is not in order. We just adopted an amendment that replaced the full text. And so that text cannot be amended any further except by adding to its end. That is under the rules that once the assembly has decided to insert particular matter, that matter cannot be adjusted thereafter, except by special procedures.
Thank you, Member Mead.
Thank you for that. That was my clarification earlier.
Thank you. With that clarification, this amendment is out of order. Right. Mr. Secretary, do you have a question, point of information?
I would like to amend that we strike the words "or another negotiated amount" from the fourth clause, be a resolved clause.
Same point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
I'd
Yes.
like to get a parliamentary inquiry on it then.
Before we acknowledge Marco, let's go to Madam Parliamentarian for parliamentary inquiry on this amendment.
The point of order that Member Mead raised is correct. Once you have adopted an amendment, you cannot amend it further except by adding on to the end.
Thank you so much. Member Schamberger.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. I was trying to continue my thought then. Then what's the difference between what we have first amended with the additional language and the stricken language? How do we amend that, but we can't amend anything else at this point?
Because that was a larger scope.
Well, we started with 1059, and now we actually are, the top of this actually says 1060. So we started with 1059 that was amended, and then we created all new language, and you're saying no language removed from this can be added.
It was a full strike and replace. The previous one was amending some language. This one went further outside the scope of the original. So the problem is that when you do a full strike and replace, you can't go any further outside the scope. So you can have an amendment that gets bigger, but you can't have an amendment that gets smaller inside of a previously amended language.
Would a full strike and replace be in order at this time?
No, because that was already, all of that language has been adopted. You could add something onto the end, but this has already been voted on.
As was the original 1059, though.
It's still 1059. It's just that he put it on the sheet that said 1060. Member Orontia already clarified that earlier.
Mr. Chair?
Before I go ahead.
I think it might be helpful. I've been wanting to have our operations director say a couple of words, and in particular, I think that or another negotiated amount, just at least for discussion or for questions and answers would be helpful to talk about. If there's any way that we could recognize staff.
Before, I want to prioritize the individuals, the members on the call. There were 2 hands that were raised. Also want to provide clarity and get an understanding for the secretary. Mr. Secretary, are you withdrawing that request for amendment?
No, I'm not. No,
For your
I'm
parliamentary
not.
inquiry?
No, I'm absolutely not. Now, if somebody wants to try to rule it out of order through some parliamentary dancing that they want to do on this call, then that's fine. But it seemed that it was okay for a group of individuals to use it to their advantage, but now we can't do it in some other measure.
Okay, thank you for your comment. All right, the hand that was up was Member Schamberger. Did you have a comment or point of information as it relates to this topic?
I would be interested to see what the operations director has an answer to Secretary Bryant's concern before I speak again.
Okay. Marco, is that why your hand is up?
I just wanted, if there is a reason to reconsider something previously adopted to better improve this amendment, I would be open to that discussion if I knew exactly what those things to be discussed were, if that makes sense. So essentially, potentially reopening this for potential amendment, but want to hear what those things are. I hope that makes procedural sense.
Yes. All right. I see two hands, Member Zapata and Member Rosewinkle. Before we do that, Member Mead, are you coming in with a parliamentary procedure?
I move to reconsider the vote by which Amendment 2 was adopted. I voted for the amendment.
Second.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can have a moment to explain the effect of that motion.
Please.
Yeah, this would put Amendment 2 back before us, and then we can continue to amend the text. So the amendments by Randall Bryant and Marion Spencer Morrison would both be in order, if not otherwise out of order by another rule.
All right, I will.
Mr. Chair, if I can provide a little bit of procedural clarification. As Member Mead mentioned, this motion can be made by any member of the committee who did not vote with the losing side. And because all the members of the committee who voted with the prevailing side are still present, then it is a majority vote.
Okay. All right, there's a current motion on the floor for a majority vote. To one more time, Member Mead, would you please restate your motion?
I move to reconsider the vote by which Amendment 2 was adopted.
To reconsider the vote by which motion 2 was adopted. Is that correct? All right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We will entertain this motion sorry, I'm losing my words here. We will entertain this motion. Marco, did you have a question before we do this?
I can't remember if we've seconded this. I'll second.
Seconded by Omar Jimenez.
Okay, Omar Jimenez, we have a second.
Oh, okay. I would like to speak in support. I don't want to close debate and value Member Bryant's and Miriam's comments. Yeah. So.
Thank you. Let's move to a discussion. That's a first in support. Is there any other in support or against? Member Rosewinkle.
I'm in support of this motion to keep the debate open.
Okay. Anyone against? Okay. Hearing none. Marco, is your hand still raised from before? Okay. All right. Hearing none, we will keep the debate open. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted for clarification through the parliamentarian, please, if I could just get a response. it appears we did this without objection. Is that correct? We're back on the motion is back open. I didn't hear a vote on that or anything.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, then I would like to amend Marco's motion to strike or another negotiated amount.
Second.
Okay. Second by member Schamberger.
If I could be recognized for discussion.
Absolutely. You have the floor.
Thank you, sir. Again, members, I have not done a true comparison of what originally was authored and voted or in support by over 40 SDEC members and DNC members from across our state. But if this is the only substantive change to the language, then the biggest differentiator that I see is this term or other negotiated amount. As I've stated, as was sent out to you all at 5:10 p.m. prior to our call by the original author of 1059 DNC member Andre Triber. Not only does the Texas Republican Party pay its chair $150,000, but as well as California and both Florida, both also, which are states comparable to the size of Texas, as well as comparable to the size of our electoral college votes, should be paying our state party chair $150,000. This should not be a non-negotiable item, and these bylaws should not give any wavering to the degree that any candidate that wants to run for chair should know the exact dollar amount that they've come into, and as member of the SDEC, should not be any political games be played with, whether that's be when they're running to ask for it, to campaign on a stump speech to say that they will be willing to take a lower amount, and that creates some type of a wedge between them and their opponents, nor as the majority of you all on this call here are not SDEC members, leave that in the hands of the SDEC members to do so, to negotiate that amount with them based upon anything except the performance, which we can get into at a later time. So that is the motion, and I ask you to support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Member Spencer.
Yes, I'd like to speak in support of the secretary's motion, especially considering the current salary of the governor is $153,000, and so this is exactly in line with what I was going to propose as my amendment as well. So I do support this amendment.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, a reminder, this is an amendment to the amendment, so it is 2 for, 2 against.
Thank you. Member Jimenez.
Mr. Chair, I'm speaking against the amendment. I'm speaking against it because of just the flexibility of when it comes to inflation. And we're kind of seeing that in other jurisdictions where, and I think you may be aware, Mr. Chair, that the city council might be proposing another pay raise, and it's a big pay raise that the city of Dallas is proposing. So that would be the reason why I'm against the amendment, simply because I do want that whoever it is that's going to negotiate the contract for the party chair, if we get to that point where inflation might be a concern with the pay, then I just want to make sure that those bodies that are negotiating the contract have that flexibility to go up. But definitely, I don't want that to go. I don't want the salary to go down, but just that flexibility if we're including inflation and stuff like that to make it easier without having to go through the process to change the amount. So I recommend that all of our members vote against the amendment.
Thank you for your comment. Jeremy.
I'm speaking against the amendment. As we've stated, we don't want it to be less. Just because there's a negotiated amount does not mean that it will necessarily be less. It could be more. It could be structured in a very flexible and in a creative way to go and incentivize the activities that we want our chair to do. having that, I would like to see an amendment on this. And if we get past this one of maybe saying a minimum total compensation of $150,000, that way, we can have the flexibility for, it doesn't have to be salary. But, to me, getting rid of or another negotiated amount means you have to take 150,000 in salary, and that's the only way that this can proceed. And we may lose some candidates. Lawyers aren't going to want this position. There are other professions that may not want this position if they have to work full time and they're capped at 150,000. And no matter how hard they work, no matter how much money they raise for our party, that's it. So that's why I'm against it. Thank you.
Great comment. I think we've exhausted our individuals who are speaking against this.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
And are there any other individuals who are speaking in favor?
We've exhausted the two in favor as well, Mr. Chair.
All right. Let's see, a few more hands. So we've exhausted that and we've reached the limited debate for our amendment. I'd like to seeing as there is no more.
Chair, I have a point of information, please.
Yes, ma'am.
We removed earlier that this rule, let's see, that if there were, in the event of shortage of funds where the payroll cannot be met, then all staff would be paid. That was removed. Now it's back in. I'm just trying to get clarity on exactly where we are.
Mr. Chair, that failed for lack of a second.
Okay, great. Thank you
so much. Okay. Are these points of information? I see two hands.
I want to make an amendment to the amendment. Offer a friendly amendment.
That would be a third level amendment, and that is not allowed.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Any other points of information before we move forward?
Yes.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Yeah, to the gentleman that spoke prior to on this particular amendment, that I'm against the way it was stated, that the SDEC would have this sole opportunity to move it one way or the other, when we as delegates at the assembly, once this is passed here, it has to, if I'm not mistaken, it has to come out to a minority report to bring it to the assembly for full assembly approval. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, I'm very unclear what exactly was being asked, and I'm happy to assist if needed.
Would you mind restating that?
You're talking to me?
Yes.
Okay. What I heard the gentleman say earlier, because so many of the SDEC people are in support of it, or the DNC people are in support of this particular amendment, that this is the reason why it is being proposed the way it is. Well, I was in approval of the original amendment to begin with, but with the change of the wording that and the statement that it's up to the SDEC to move it forward. If I'm mistaken, I stand to get some clarification on the procedures going forward with this particular resolution or change to the rule.
Yep. Is
Does
there
it come to a minority report after we get done here, so that the General Assembly has an opportunity to vote this up and down?
So, Mr. Chair, I think I know what Fidel is asking. from what I'm understanding is you're talking about what are the procedural rules for issues. You can do a minority report of the committee. However, there's also all items that are moving forward, recommended or not recommended, or no recommendation at all, or committee substitutes. All of those will be placed on the consent calendar. The new procedural rules say that if an item wants to be pulled from consent for discussion, then a petition process has to be done. That's in the call to convention, which is on the same document as the rules. So you would essentially, via petition process, pull something off of the consent calendar. I think it would require maybe about 20, 30, 40 signatures. And then at that point, when the, Chairman Coleman is announcing the rules report, essentially everything's passed on consent calendar except for those items. And then on the floor of the convention, we would move into potential discussion for those items that are pulled. And whether that's an item that is not recommended, no recommendation, committee substitute, or a recommendation, those items can be pulled and then they would be in discussion at that point.
I'll go for that explanation.
All right, so we have exhausted limits of debate on this item, on this amendment, and so we'll take this to a vote. Seeing there's no more discussion, we'll proceed with the vote. Just a quick reminder that a vote yes is a vote for or in favor.
The motion is to strike or another negotiated amount.
Thank you. To strike the language or another negotiated amount. So a vote yes is in favor of striking that language, and a vote no, it's not in favor of that.
Mr. Chairman, I vote no.
Thank you so much. Okay, anyone else who needs assistance through voice vote? I'll give you just a few moments to submit your votes here.
This is Ann Rosenwinkel. I vote yes.
Okay.
For clarification, would this stop further amendments on that section?
No.
No, it would not.
All right, we'll give you about 20 more seconds for anyone who has not voted. If you are having trouble voting, please just unmute, say your name and how you would like to vote. We'll make sure that's tallied for you.
Sorry, I'm having trouble here. What column are we voting in here?
M and N.
Okay.
Yeah, I've hidden all the columns, so it's a little bit easier if people don't get as confused.
Got it. Okay. All right.
Thank you for that.
Okay. I got my vote there. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much. Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chair, in 22 in favor, 10 in opposition, the amendment 1 to amendment 2 for Rule 1059 passes.
Thank you so much. Next item, please.
I love the parliamentary rule, but I think we still need to approve.
The pending motion is on the adoption of Amendment 2 as amended.
Correct.
It is still open for additional amendments if there are any pending.
Are there, are there any additional amendments?
Yes.
Administratively, Mr. Chair, just real quick. Dina, do you mind of taking over? Do you have the link to this? I need to take.
Put me on it and I can do it.
Okay. I'm just sending the link to everyone in the meeting for the current committee substitute. I do have to take a break. I'm sorry.
Marco, I don't have access to it.
Member Mead, do you have a point of information?
I have an amendment.
Okay.
I move to add, correction, I move to insert.
Before you do that, I want to make sure that we have,
I don't have access. The document comes up as.
Refresh, you should be good now.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
All right, are you ready?
Let's make sure.
There we go.
If us, is this viewer access, not editing access? But while that's happening, I think we have the gist to be able to edit, and you'll see that in hopefully in real time. So member Mead, let's continue, and then we will make edits as necessary.
There we go. I move to insert the words "or greater" after $150,000.
Okay.
Second.
Was that seconded by member Jimenez?
Yes, it was seconded by me, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none.
Make a discussion. I was going to make the same motion, so.
Okay, thank you. Hearing none, the
Sir, Chair, there's hand raised.
oh, sorry. Member Schamberger.
Yeah, this is exactly what we just voted on. It's just a different way of phrasing it. The committee chose to take out or negotiated amount, putting in or greater. It's just a word play. We need to be very clear about what we are offering in this position and not allow this to become a political point, a political issue, a point of contention with the SDC.
Okay. Member Mead, would you like to?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was arguing a point of order or if it was substantive. If it's substantive, I think there's a difference between what we had previously, which would allow it to go either below or above $150,000, and this, which sets a minimum of $150,000, because I don't think we should go below $150,000. But I do think I'm sympathetic to the arguments people have made that the state chair should be able to negotiate a salary just like in any other position. But at the same time, the whole point of this resolution is to set a baseline that we think the position is worth at least this much. So that was what I was aiming to do with this amendment.
Thank you for that clarification. Just a reminder for the hands that are up, we are moving towards discussion, debate on this item. So there'll be opportunity for 2 for and 2 against to add the language or greater after 150,000. Right. Member Russell.
Yeah, this was the question that I had earlier. If you want what I think Mr. Mead is suggesting, it needs to say an annual salary of no less than $150,000. And then you can either have the or greater as proposed or a negotiated amount. So in other words, if you're trying to set a floor of $150,000, you want to say an annual salary of no less than $150,000. So this is less clear than what I had suggested, but it certainly is pretty similar to the amendment we just voted in favor of, removing the other negotiated amount.
Yep, just want to make sure you are you for or against this item?
That was a question in the sense that I'm not sure we're being clear as we could be based upon what we want, which I agree with, what we're trying to accomplish. I'm just saying, I think I question whether this is as clear as we thought it was. That's basically my question to the Mr. Mead's proposed amendment.
Thank you for that. All right. At this point, we are only entertaining comments that are for or against the amendment that is on the floor. Right. So I'll answer your questions or call your names in the order that I see them. Member Jenkins.
Yeah, so I'm speaking in favor of Member Mead's amendment. I think that from my understanding of the or an amount to be negotiated did allow, I can't remember who said it, but did allow for points of folks saying, oh, well, I'll only ask for $80,000 if you elect me as chair. And so then you have the problem of, again, we get back to this problem that we have now of people who can afford to be chair or independently wealthy. Of course, they're going to say, oh, I'll take $2 a year just to, mess with other people, which makes it, a barrier to those of us who are like, hey, like to survive in the city that I live in, I need at least $75,000. That's why I haven't ran for chair previously, because it wasn't a paid position. It didn't offer benefits. I have to keep my full-time job. So I think that's one point of it. But I think that his amendment is very clear, concise, and still kind of, to me, is kind of a consensus. I would rather not the chair be able to negotiate anything, but I feel like he made a very smart move to make a consensus to say, hey, minimum salary is $150,000 or greater in negotiations, discussions with SDEC, hiring entity, legal, however we get that technicality done. So I think it's a great compromise for folks. And I would hope that as Democrats, we'd be willing to come together and compromise on things, seeing as we are getting closer and closer to that intended time that we hope to leave. So let's not repeat and be platform again. No shade to platform.
Thank you. Speaking of no shade to platform, I just wanted to do a quick time check and make sure that we're moving as expeditiously as possible and respecting your time. So I'm asking that you speak for or against, state that at the beginning, and then also limit your speech to 2 minutes. Member Zapata. Member
All right,
Zapata.
sorry, it was giving me a hard time on mute. So I am speaking against the amendment. The reason for that being that I'm the lead bargainer in my labor union, and there is a reason why unions tend to not utilize like a pay scale within their CBA contracts. And that's really just to make sure that there is equity amongst the individuals revolving through the position. So that's generally why a lot of unions will say X position is tied to X amount dollar figure, no negotiating possible, like it's just tied to this. And that, like I said, is just to make sure that there is equity amongst the people revolving through the position. And so that's why I'm against.
Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
We've exhausted debate.
Thank you. All right. Seeing as there is no more discussion, we will move towards a vote on this item. Can we put up our vote sheet? We're moving right along.
If we have lost Marco, I do not have the vote sheet. Is Laura on?
I'm so sorry. I'll put the vote sheet in the chat.
Thank you.
I can find the chat. All right, there it is, and I'm pretty sure you're an editor with all the capabilities, Dina. Yeah, let me know if you can't edit something.
Yep. Was there a point of information, members Zapata?
Mr. Chair, SD10, no.
I'm sorry.
SD10, no. Fidel.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so this is amendment 2 to amendment 2. And that was SD 10. No, okay, it's not. Is there anybody else who needs their vote marked?
If so, please come off of mute.
This is Anne. I'm voting no. Anne Rosenwinkel, CD7.
Thank you. We have
Gotcha,
a-
Ann.
Okay, anyone else? Give you 10 more seconds. All right, Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chair, with 8 in favor, 24 in opposition, the amendment 2 to the amendment 2 rules 1059 fails.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we are back on amendment 2 as amended.
Okay. We are. Okay, I'll let you. Okay, we're back at the screen. So amendment 2 as amended. Is there any objection to recommending the adoption of amended 2 as amended? Is there any objection to recommending the adoption of this current rule as it is in front of us?
So this is on adopting amendment 2 as amended.
Yes. Hearing none, the recommendation is adopted. Thank you all.
And so now the item is on whether to recommend the adoption of a committee substitute to the main body.
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
The motion on the floor is to recommend the adoption of a committee substitute.
Okay.
This committee substitute.
Okay, so the recommendation on the floor is the adoption of a committee substitute. Is there any objection to recommending the adoption of this committee substitute?
Point of information or clarification. So we're voting on the text as originally amended by Marco. Is that correct?
There was an amendment that was adopted to that, which was to strike or another negotiated amount. So it's the committee substitute as it exists is Marco's language minus or another negotiated amount.
Thank you for clarifying.
Member Anza? This point of information?
I believe so. So
Okay.
when it comes to the definition of full-time, did we get any explanation as to what that entails?
We did.
Okay.
Just as a reminder,
Can
essentially,
yeah. I'm sorry. I was just gonna ask for a reminder of that because I don't recall.
yeah, I think, getting back to what this rule is it's a lot of it's kind of the general stuff. It's not in the details. I think that's something that, working with, our operations HR and the SDEC would get defined. Want to make sure that we get that correct. So yeah, I think that's something that would go in procedural, essentially.
Thank you.
Madam Parliamentarian, would you provide me with the language for the substitute one more time?
The motion is to recommend the adoption of the committee substitute.
Okay. Is there any objection to recommend the adoption of this committee substitute? Hearing none, the recommendation is adopted.
Okay. Closing all this. We are now on 1024.
Okay.
This is on annual internal audit of the finance committee's. No, that's not of the finance committee's internal audit subcommittee. That's, I think he's by. Yeah, you just zoom out. Whereas a subcommittee of the Finance Committee successfully conducted an internal audit in the current term of the SDEC that was approved by the body, and since the old audit subsection was not properly worded to provide healthy implementation, the following amendment is to update the audit subsection to current and appropriate standards that were conducted this term. Now, therefore, be it resolved to amend Article 7G by striking the section and replacing it with the state chair shall cause an internal audit of the financial records of the party to be made by a subcommittee of the Finance Committee at least once each calendar year. A copy of the report of such an audit shall be furnished to each member and executive officer of the SDEC. To highlight the changes that I see here, it's changing the current language says of the SDEC. This is correcting that to be of the party. And the current language says by a certified public accountant. This is by a subcommittee. I like this language. By a subcommittee of the Finance Committee. Mr. Chair, to you.
Thank you. Is there any objection to recommending this this proposal for adoption?
Chair, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Casey McLean, CD4. First question is this a subcommittee that is made up of members of the Finance Committee?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's see, the way it reads, the chair shall cause an internal audit of the financial records to be made by the subcommittee of the Finance Committee. All right. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Member Jenkins.
I just wanted to say that I object.
Okay. Thank you. Nancy Sanders, Member Sanders. Is this looking for?
Sorry, I also object.
Okay, questions and points of information. Questions, any questions or points of information? Member Schamberger.
Yeah. Is the intention of changing this rule from being done by a certified public accountant to a subcommittee of the Finance Committee? Is it the intention that the same process that was followed this year by that subcommittee be followed in the future. I know that those subcommittee members did a lot of work putting together exactly what those procedures would be. And so I just want to get clarification on the purpose.
Yes, essentially what occurred this year, the internal audit subcommittee of the finance committee is just to continue that process. Where there was a we happen to have a member that was a CPA, and worked with our compliance officer. So it's essentially the way that the rule reads right now doesn't work because it's not written appropriately to have an audit. And so I think this is to essentially continue the process of the internal audit subcommittee, and also have it focus on, the specific things, because obviously we get audited, by the FEC, and, everything's online and all that stuff. So this is more the things that aren't checked publicly or, looked at.
Thank you.
Member Kando.
Yes, this second part by a subcommittee of the finance committee, I just heard it said that we happened to have a CPA on that committee this year. So is this intended to remove the requirement that a financial and professional be involved in this, or is there some provision made in the procedures that accounts for that?
So one, obviously compliance from a party and, specifically a state party, I think aren't necessarily the same attributes that necessarily a CPA would have by default. So that's one thing. But I think it's important to sort of still have that element within that subcommittee. So I would hope that even if there's not an SDC or a DNC member that happens to be a CPA, if needed be, the chairman can appoint anyone to any of the committees. So if, let's say, there's not one CPA left on the SDC at a certain time, I would, as far as my staff process, search someone that would want to do this, because I'm sure we have one in one county party somewhere that would want to do this. Appoint them. They can be appointed to the finance committee. The chairman has the ability to appoint anyone, and then that would just be ratified by the SEC. Once they're on the finance committee, then that person could be named to the subcommittee. So if that's a cause for concern, I wouldn't, just because I know that that's been something that some members have wanted. Obviously, I know there's a little bit of cons for that, because compliance on is different from accounting, but I understand, and so we would still try to find someone that would do it, and essentially doing this voluntarily, to where this doesn't cause $50K, $75K, $100K, $125K, whatever the line item might be, to do this annually, especially after an election year when you spend a lot of money and you size down a little bit. That's the intent. I think we try to do some modeling off of what Harris County has with their internal audit committee, but not exactly, just because I think that state party is just a little bit different. But yeah, sorry if that was long-winded.
All right, thank you for that. Hands, and I guess in the order that they were raised. Member Sanders, do you have a question, point of information?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say that an audit is done by a CPA, period. And whatever it takes to have a CPA, if it's internal or an third-party audit, which is what it really should be, it shouldn't be anybody involved in the party doing the audit. Since we have such a poor record of doing any audits, in what, a decade, it would seem to me to make it to be a priority for our state party to always have a CPA do the audit. So I remain opposed to this.
Thank you. Member Jenkins.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide some clarification about my objection to unanimous consent on this item. So while I do believe it's extremely costly to try to have a CPA audit the party's books every single year, I did want to see some kind of third-party mechanism, at least maybe every 4 years or something along that lines, just because my concern is, and this is not me, I want to clarify this, not me throwing any shade to anybody, but I don't want a situation where we end up like the Republican Party where our SDC is insulating bad actors and then it comes out later on in the press, and I just don't want that to be the realities of our party. So that is why I objected, just because I wanted the opportunity to amend this to add some kind of third-party accountability, every so often, but maybe not every year, to allow our subcommittee folks to do the work that they've been doing.
Thank you so much. Is there a clarification there?
Sorry, I didn't hear a question.
Okay. Member Jenkins, want to make sure that you were clarifying, correct?
Yes, I was just clarifying why I did it, because I just wanted to have that discussion to look at that as a proposal.
Okay. Member Schamberger, thank you for your comment.
Yeah, just another point of clarification. As an SCEC member who received a copy of this audit from the subcommittee of the Finance Committee this year, were the procedures that the subcommittee followed this year written down for future subcommittees to follow? As I understand it, as Marco mentioned, it was this year done by a CPA who is very well versed in doing audits like this. So I just want to, I'd like parties have to clarify whether or not that was formalized as a part of the audit process.
Yeah, all of that stuff was taken down and annotated and will be used as a model for the next one, because if this doesn't pass, we still do it unless there's some sort of big structural change. But yeah, a lot of those procedures were written down, and they're in the nature of procedural rules, so that'd be standing rule or some sort of document or appendices or something like that. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
All right. Member Smith.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to clarify a comment that Marco made regarding Harris County and the processes that we follow out here. The Finance Subcommittee in Harris County has not met regularly and has not yet presented any results. And so I don't know that following Harris County's lead is fiscally sound. And I just wanted to clarify how it actually plays out in Harris County.
So Harris County for many years has had an audit clause in their bylaws, procedural rules, and they have followed that. You're saying now, you're shaking your head. They have followed that in the past. And those have been executed in the past by past administrations and past bodies. So I think when I'm saying a model, I'm just saying an internal audit rather than an audit. Essentially, there's a committee that does the work. So if there's obviously look at the Harris County language, but really it's more of the idea of the internal audit rather than following the exacts. If that allays any sort of hesitancy, yeah, I hope that helps.
Oh, all right. Member Jenkins, that you have a question, and point of information.
I have just a quick question. If I may. The subcommittee and the process, I understand that we can, there's a CPA somewhere in our party, we can find them, and I'm wholly, understanding that. I just want to know that, are there other alternatives externally that the party has explored to utilize for an audit method, just as like a double check? Again, I'm not against the subcommittee. I think the subcommittee is going to work great, especially to do that yearly. But I'm just thinking about maybe every 4 to 8 years, has the party talked about any outside method to reconcile the books and just make sure that everything is together? Again, I just worry about not having some kind of outside mechanism and folks thinking that things are being done fishy.
Are you asking about an outside method or an outside party doing the work?
I'm using method and party interchangeably. I'm just asking what other discussions have been done when it was thought of removing this portion of taking out the CPA. Was there any discussions or questions with other folks about, hey, maybe we should have like every 48 years, maybe, I don't know, Joe Schmo down the street and his CPA firm, like they do some kind of reconciliation, or another body that, the SDEC trust, just something outside of the SDEC and that sphere.
Has there been debate and questions among the governing board about audit in the past? Yes. I think what ends up happening, and I think there's some members on here who have been involved in those discussions, whether they're in the finance committee or at large, is that the poor language that exists currently, which does not really say to do an audit by the way it's written. I think, one, do you do that every 1 or 2 years? And when do you trigger that? Also, how do you fundraise and budget for that money? I know we were talking about the pay the chair issue, but fundraising is fundraising, and I'm not sure how many members have if I were to look you up on NGP to see how much you've donated in the past, I'm not sure what that amount would be. So if we're doing this and causing this at the end of an election year, there's been many SDC members that have been opposed to that. Not everybody, but there's been some vocal ones to oppose to funding that, because essentially we just, spent, towards election day, and we don't have that money, or it's at the odd year of the cycle, we don't have those funds to go with another firm, especially with the amount of funds that we have, cycle to cycle. So I think that has been discussed at length, if that was the question. And so, and to get to it, so this has been the sort of compromise out of maybe 8 years, maybe, of discussion about audit, is that we can finally do this in a way, and we're not double doing the outside party that's already checking our books, which is the FEC, and will fine us whenever we mess up. And so, yeah, so this is the sort of compromise. So the discussion has been happening for some time. I hope that answers the question.
It does. Thank you.
Okay. The remaining hands, are these questions points of information? Just want to make sure we have clarity there. Okay. I see a head nod. Member Rusk.
Yes, thank you. fortunately, I have actually been involved in audits. I've actually worked for a nonprofit for almost 20 years that was double audited, just sharing that background. I think part of what's a little bit of a mystery to me here to ask good questions, ask some good sparks questions and use your time wisely is this. What I think I'm hearing is that it has been a financial burden to try to cooperate with the way the rule was originally written. Marco, if I heard you correctly, there were problems with implementation or problems with the way it was written. So we're trying to come up with maybe a more cost-effective way to implement this. There was also a point of information someone asked about clarification of if procedural recommendations were made, have those been documented, and has there been a way made so those improvements could be implemented? And then going forward, of course, apparently there was a non-disclosure agreement written so that for example, the Rules Committee here, I'll just speak for myself because I'm not on the SDEC, did not really see the results of the audit. So there's a whole lot of mystery here. So bear with me as I'm asking for clarification on this.
I think you got everything right except for the very last part. The
Okay.
full SEC was shared on the audit, and that it was presented, I think, at the meeting in Fort Bend County, whenever that
Okay.
was. So
Okay.
yes, the full SEC has received that.
Good to know. So the point of clarification about this new paragraph for me would be, could the Finance Committee, would the subcommittee of the Finance Committee, would that be exclusively of people within like the SDEC? Would it be any external consultants, or maybe if they're not a CPA, a volunteer or something that would be brought in to give a little independent focus? Thank you. That's what I think I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I feel like I addressed that question a little bit earlier when I said the chair has the ability to appoint two committees, even if they're not a member of the DNC. So, or sorry, not the DNC, the SDC. So he regularly appoints DNC members. You know, on our convention committee, there's people who are not SDC members. The current convention chair is no longer an SDC member, but is still there. Right. So appointments to committees and the ratification by the body of members, we can always add members if needed. Those just need to be ratified by the body. His appointments need to be ratified by the body. And then at that point, those committees can then create their own subcommittees. And that can be consisting of the people who aren't technically SDC members. A perfect example is, DNC member Selena Vasquez. She was a member of the Finance Committee and of the subcommittee on the internal audit. She's not a SEC member, she's a DNC member.
It's good information, because what I would suggest a big picture goal is that we want to improve or maintain the integrity of the Texas Democratic Party finances so that donors can be very comfortable donating. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Member Allen.
Thank you. I was a part of the committee that did the investigation after we lost the last election. I was appointed by the chair. This subject was discussed for weeks upon weeks. It was determined that if you hire an outside CPA, and by the way, I have hired numerous CPAs myself, but it was determined if you hire an outside CPA firm, you're going to be probably spending in the neighborhood of $100,000 to review everything in a very well looked at audit. Also, you're going to be exposing all of our internal information to audit companies, even though maybe the head of it or the owner of it is a Democrat. There will be lots of people on that audit company's payroll that are Republican, and they will tear apart, look into everything that we do. So we came up with the best resolve to try to keep it internally so we could protect our donors and the way that we run our business. And this was the way that we came up with it. Because here again, you don't want to expose our internal private information to a bunch of Republicans. And also the cost was very, we took estimates and it was in the neighborhood of $100,000. So that I just wanted to throw that in there so y'all would hear that. This is something that's been debated about for years, and I was involved in all those debates. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Member Sanders. Member Sanders.
Sorry, I just like to say that an audit that's not conducted by a CPA is probably not an audit. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Member Spencer. Member Spencer.
Sorry, I was typing. I was going to offer a friendly amendment.
Okay. Before you do that, I'd like to see if there are any other points of information on the floor. See, our Vice Chair.
Yes, I was going to ask, it seems like we have drifted into for and against discussion instead of just questions and points of order. If so, then I would like to speak for the amendment when appropriate.
Are there any more points of information? Okay, here are none. I'd like to open the floor for debate. Limits of debate will be 2 minutes each speaker, 3 for, 3 against, and then Madam Vice Chair, will you please go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to start by saying I work in finance. I work with auditors for several weeks every single quarter. I have served on the Dallas County Democratic Party Audit Committee. I have every faith in the people who serve on the Finance Committee and whatever subcommittee they come up with, because those people have to be into finance, trust me. I think we should pass this. I also did my own inquiries in the past into how much it would cost just for Dallas County Democratic Party to hire an outside auditors that specialized in nonprofits. And this was pre-pandemic, it was starting at $30,000 for, just a county club. And I remember when we researched how much it would cost to do it on the state level. And it was 100,000 minimum. So I feel very confident in this and I strongly support it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Member Mead, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alex Mead, I'm speaking for this amendment. This was initially a bit of a difficult decision for me because I always favor audits and things like that being as independent as possible, but I'm persuaded by just how difficult and impractical it would be and has proven to be to have an audit conducted by a fully independent third-party outside firm. And I'm also very much persuaded by Mr. Jamail's highlighting that such an audit would expose our details to Republicans at the audit firm. And from what I know of the internal audit, it went extremely well. It was transparently conducted by qualified people, and it avoided a lot of those issues that would arise with having to engage an outside firm to conduct an audit. And it seems like it's just more practical, and ultimately we have to write rules that are practicable for our party to carry out. So for that reason, I'll be supporting this proposal.
Thank you so much. Anyone else who would like to speak on this current proposal? For or against?
We just have the availability for 2 against.
Okay. Anyone like to speak against? All right. Hearing none, we will end debate and move. If there is no more discussion, we will, Member Spence.
Just to offer my amendment before we vote on this.
I'd like to take that up after we.
No, it needs to be before.
Okay. All right. Member Spence, you have the floor.
Okay, just listening to the discussion and dealing with financial audits myself as well. I offer an amendment to where it says G, internal audit. Where it says, after where it says subcommittee of the financial committee, and I just put a comma after committee.
I'm sorry, could you clarify what is doing what? Just adding a comma?
A comma there. And I just inserted the text, a member of which shall be required to be a CPA, since that seems to be a concern of the committee. At least once each calendar year.
A member of which
shall be required to be a CPA.
Shall be required to be a CPA.
And then after calendar year,
it cannot be separate like that. They have to be contiguous language.
Oh, okay. No, it's in the same section of that.
It has to be contiguous language. You can't have two separate places.
Oh, okay.
Is there a way that you could make it into one?
Because it's at the end of the sentence. Because it's like, here we're talking about an internal audit. Right?
Go ahead and tell me what it is you have intention. Maybe we can help you craft the language.
Okay, and then after the calendar year period, I said an external audit shall be commenced every 4 years by the party. And that way we are still doing an annual audit, which is commencing with the intent and the purpose of the rule, but it's also every 4 years looking externally. So we have 4 years of data before we go external.
If there's any way we can do this amendment in two parts or two different amendments.
Sure, that's fine. But
Please.
I think one of the first things is I think we all are okay with it being a subcommittee of the finance committee, but just listening to the discussion, it appears that everybody's concerned that it's not a requirement that there's at least a CPA on that subcommittee.
So, question on this for clarification. Are you suggesting that it be a CPA who is trained in audit procedures, or does it matter that it can just be any CPA?
While I would prefer it to be somebody who's trained with audit procedures, I would be open to it just being a CPA, which is consistent with the current language.
Does it, and you're okay with it? I guess we probably should say certified public accountant, not CPA, because that could mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it needs to be a CPA, not another financial professional, correct? Someone who.
At least we're just asking that it's okay if it's a subcommittee, but one member of that committee needs to at least be a CPA.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Okay. This time we'd like to. Okay, members, please stay on mute while we're entertaining this motion to amend, right?
Carolyn Salter has her hand up.
Okay. Member Salter.
I just wanted to say that every CPA is certified in audit. It's a part of their exam process.
Okay, so we have a motion, motion to amend a second. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, Member Jimenez.
Mr. Chair, now with what Member Sadler mentioned about how all the CPAs are trained, I'm still going to speak against the motion because I am just concerned about trying to find a CPA to even serve on this committee. I'm just a little concerned about that committee trying to logistically find that person to serve it. Yes, if we can get a CPA, yes, and external audits, yes, I agree with that. I definitely agree with all of that. But you know, with some of the discussion that we had about the logistics of trying to find one and the cost, I definitely do agree with what some of the members say about those costs factoring in to do these audits. So I encourage everybody to vote against this motion simply because of just that concern of trying to find that person unless somebody can find that person or how we find that person.
Thank you. Member Schamberger.
Hi, I'm speaking in favor of the amendment. I think logistics of finding a CPA aside, I think that the subcommittee that did the audit this year was very well served by having a CPA on it. I think that there are plenty of ways for the party chair to find someone who's willing to do this. But I think it's very important that we have someone on the committee who has that knowledge.
Thank you. Member Smith.
I'd like to speak in favor of the amendment.
Okay.
I wanted to agree with Member Schamberger about the chair being able to find a CPA. We have one currently serving. Finding future ones should not be difficult in a state as populous as Texas. And it addresses the concerns of exposing the party secrets, financial secrets, to members of an opposing party. So it kind of, I think, is a very happy compromise between having a yearly external audit and a subcommittee of finance. I would encourage everyone to vote for this amendment.
Thank you. Member Mead.
I don't like speaking against this, but I recently wrapped up I'm speaking against this amendment. I recently wrapped up a bylaws revision for my county party, and we actually talked about this, not this exact question, but the audit question more generally. And there were a lot of things that we wanted to do, like outside audits, like a CPA, that it just wasn't practical to do. And something we really focused on in our revision was making sure, as I mentioned, making sure rules are actually practical to carry out. We can write all the financial governance standards we want. We had a lot of those in our current county party rules, and we found a lot of them just weren't workable. They were born of optimism. I mean, noble optimism, but still optimism. I'm really concerned. I mean, we have a CPA right now. That CPA leaves the SDUC. We're going to have to find one. Probably going to have to pay them unless we can find some other volunteer who's willing to do the job, which is not a guarantee. And if that happens, we would be without a CPA and we'd be in violation of this rule. So I think it's prudent to have a CPA if we can, but I don't think we should write it into the rule.
Thank you so much. And I believe that ends our limit of debate for this amendment, 2 for and 2 against. With no further discussion on this item, I'd like to proceed to take it to a vote.
How are you voting? Just see what the majority.
Members, make sure you're on mute.
Thank you, Marco. Any member let's make sure that all members actually, make sure we remain muted during this process. If we can get the vote sheet up on the screen so that members can begin voting. Actually, members, you can begin voting while we're getting this vote sheet on the screen. If there's anyone who needs help voting, please come off of mute and we will get you tallied.
Okay, Fidel, SD10.
Thank you.
Chair, can you confirm which column?
It is column Q and R. I'm trying my best to hide all other columns. Fidel. Oh, wait, sorry.
Yes.
Ooh, someone highlighted it. That works. Fidel, did you vote yes or no? I'm sorry.
Yeah, yes on it.
Ann Rosenwinkel, how do you vote? Maybe she's gone. Alan, do you need help voting? Jamail?
Yep. Anyone else? Give you 10 more seconds to vote on this item. All right, Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chair, with 13 in favor, 17 opposed, the amendment 1 to the amendment 1 for Rule 1024 fails.
Right. Thank you all. Okay. Let's do this. It is 10:48 p.m. rather. And at the beginning of the meeting, we did say that we wanted to try to complete this meeting by 10:30 p.m. That was a lofty goal. Didn't quite get there. We have passed, I believe, 8 of these proposals with 14 still remaining. Right. So we have
Mr. Chair,
yes, ma'am.
we still have to vote on the main proposal.
So sorry.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Who's speaking?
Parliamentary inquiry.
Yes.
Is it in order for a member to make a motion to lay this item on the table until the next called meeting of the committee?
It is.
It would be a motion to postpone, but yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I move to postpone further consideration of the item until the next called meeting of the Rules Committee.
Second.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second, Angela Smith, CD 38.
The objection?
Objection, Mr. Chair. If we could finish this item, I'd really appreciate it. We're almost there. And then if we could schedule another meeting for everything else, I appreciate that.
I agree. All we need to do is vote on this now.
That's it. Now.
Thank you so much, Madam Vice Chair. All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Secretary.
Clarification, we have only 2 in opposition remaining. 2 have already spoken in support of it.
Okay. Is there any discussion from anyone who is would like to pose this this proposal? Member Spencer.
It's a parliamentary inquiry. I believe we have a motion and a second to postpone on the table right now. And that precedes any action on the item.
Madam Parliamentarian?
That is correct. There's a motion to postpone on the floor.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to withdraw my motion.
Okay, thank you.
Because it belongs to the body, you'll need to ask unanimous consent.
One more time, I'm sorry.
Because it was with the body, it was seconded, just ask for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to withdrawing the motion?
Do we have a second, actually, is there unanimous consent to withdrawing the motion?
I'll second.
Oh, it was already seconded. No, it's just, if there's no objection, you can withdraw the motion.
Okay, no, hearing none, the motion is withdrawn. Okay, any discussion? Sorry, any discussion on the previous motion? Against? I believe that's where we were.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, hearing none. Just want to make sure. Hearing none. With no further discussion, we'll move this item to a vote. We'll get up the vote sheet, please. While they're preparing the vote sheet, members feel free to go ahead and start voting. And individuals who need help, will you please unmute? Again, a vote yes is to recommend the adoption, and a vote no is to not recommend adoption.
Fidel, what's your vote?
Fidelity.
I'm not sure on this one, but
You can always abstain and not vote at all.
who was
I've
the
done
author?
that twice. What's that?
Marcos, was you the author on this one?
Yes, sir.
That what? I lost the last part of it. I was on a call. Yeah, put me down as yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, 10 more seconds on this item. Okay, Mr. Secretary, would you please read our vote count?
20 in favor, 7 opposed. Rule 1024 as amended passes.
Thank you all so much. At this time, I would like to make a motion to adjourn at the call of the chair.
Motion to postpone. A recess. Motion to recess.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I'd like to make a motion to recess tonight's meeting.
We're not going to come back tonight, correct?
Not tonight.
So it would be a motion to adjourn at the call of the chair for another meeting.
Okay. Is there a second for motion to adjourn at the call of the chair for another meeting?
Second.
Yes, second.
Wow. Right. Any objection? Hearing none.
Chair, I'm confused why members don't want to stay up like temporary platform did till 2:15 a.m. I don't know. I got tons of energy.
We're smarter than them.
Marco, you need to sleep more than anyone.
That's why we're on rules. All right, y'all. Thank you so much.
I actually second that Marco needs more sleep than anyone.
And do you know when we might reconvene?
I can look at the calendar. I feel like it'll be closer to convention than
June
sooner.
29th
Said Wednesday the 29th. Yeah.
Yeah, not May 29th.
Oh, yeah.
May 29th.
May
Sure.
29th is something that we already had kind of windowed just in case. I totally forgot about that, Mr. Chair. Thank you for Madam Vice Chair for pointing that out. So May 29th, 6:30.
Okay. All right. May
Mr.
29th.
Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
real quick. Sorry, I work for city government. I move to postpone all items not considered tonight to the May 29th meeting of
That
the
is not
committee.
necessary because this is an ordinary society. We don't have to follow the same structure as the city government does. Any items that were not taken up on our agenda will automatically get moved to the next meeting.
And thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Madam Parliamentarian. So we have our next meeting date. I want to thank you all for participating with us tonight. We have accomplished, we have passed 9 proposals or recommended 9 proposals. We have 13 left. So please join us at the next meeting on the 29th to so that we can power through the next 13. Right. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night. And then we will see you on the 29th. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great job.
Yes.
Thank you so
Great
much,
job,
Mr.
Mr.
Chair.
Chair.
You
You are.
definitely did awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All of you.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
Chair.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Have a good night.